can demask if you're comfortable over there.
Yeah, I do.
I'm gonna. All right. All right. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Glad to have this rousing assembly in here this morning. We're going to get started on page 103 with Birchot HaShachar, and we have the gift of John leading us today. Pesukei de Zimra, we ask that if you're able, you please rise, page 103.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasachvina Havim ben yom uben laila.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tzalmo.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam mabisha rumim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz ahamayim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechim mitzadei gaveh.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asali kol tzarki.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten la'yav koach.
Amen.
Utenenu hayom uv'chol yom l'cheinu chesed urachamim b'einecha u'b'einei chol ro'enu v'tigmalenu hasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel hasadim tovim l'yamo Yisrael.
Amen. You may be seated, page 105.
V'yom yehei adam.
Amen.
Ashreinu matov helkenu umanayim goralenu umayafa Yerushatenu. Ashreinu sha'anachnu mashkimiim umaravim erev avoker v'yomrim pa'amayim bechol yom. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Kadesh et shimcha amakdashei shemecha, v'kadesh et shimcha be'olamecha, u'vishuatecha tarim tagvicha karnenu, baruch atah Adonai, v'kadesh et shimcha barabim.
Choose a text to study between pages 107 and 110, and we'll join together in just a moment.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Rabbi Yishmael Omer. Yehi ratzon mifanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elokei avotenu sheyibaneh beit hamikdash b'mheira v'yameinu v'tein chalkenu b'toratecha v'sham na'avadecha b'yirah kemo olam u'shanim kadmoniyot.
Please rise for Kaddish D'Rabbanan, page 111. Yitzgadal v'yitzkadash shemei Rabbah ve'alama divra kirutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael b'gala uvizman karhi v'imeru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam olam almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramham v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei dekodesha b'richu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ve'alma v'imeru amen. Al Yisrael ve'al Rabbanan ve'al Talmidehon ve'al kol Talmidehon ve'al kol ma'an de'askin ve'oraita di ve'atra hadain v'di ve'chol atar ve'atar Yehi lachon shlama rabba china v'chista v'rachamin v'chayin arichin mzona v'vicha uforkana min kadam avuhon v'ishmaya v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya v'chaim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav u'barachamav ya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen. You may be seated. A psalm for Shabbat, page 112.
Yom Shabbat
Kodesh.
Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat Tov L'Adon.
Please, Machtani. Bifrach.
Ojinavum be'seva deshenim v'rananim yiyu lahagiki ashar Adonai suri v'lo avratam.
Page 120, Psalm 30.
Mizmor Shir Hanukat Habayit V'Davi Yom Adonai ki Hafhafta mispediga macholi, patata saki ba'at azreni simcha, batmanzir yizarmecha, kavod velo yadom, Adonai Ohai le'olam odecha.
On page 121, you can find Mourner's Kaddish. If you're observing Yortzeit or in mourning, or if it's your custom, feel free to rise. Page 121. Yitzgadal ve'yitzgadash shemei rabbah. Ve'alama divra kirute ve'amlich malchute ve'chayichon uvyomechon uve'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael b'gala uvizman karhi v'imeru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam olomei almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitramam ve'yitnaseh ve'yitadar ve'yitale ve'yitalal shmei dekodesha b'richu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imeru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, u'yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imeru amen. Please rise for Baruch Shamar, page 122.
Baruch
Shemar v'haya olam Baruch Hu Baruch Hoseh v'Reshit Baruch Homer v'Yoseh Baruch Hozer u'Mekayem Baruch Merachem al haaretz Baruch Merachem al habriot Baruch Meshalem Zachar Tov L'Rehav Baruch Alad v'Kayam Lanetzach Baruch Podeh u'Matzil, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Adonai, Halamel, Baruch Mishpach, Nishchol, Nazkir Shimcha.
Yechid Chei Ha'olamim, Melech Meshubachim Fa'ar Adei Ad Shemo Hagadol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Melech Mechuvah Bati
Yishvachot. You may be seated. We find Ashrei on page 136. Ashrei Yoshev Etzecha, Od Yadecha Seta, Shemcha Arami Mecha, Bechol Yam Baruch Shema Gadol. Torah Service. Zecher Etzecha Yedim Etzecha. Torah Mekom. Kevon Mefatim.
Teachet yadecha umasbia chochai ratzon tzadikan rabachal berakas. Tihilat Adonai Yedaber Pi Livarei Kabasar Shem Kadsho Ve'olam Va'ed V'nachnu Navarech Ya Me'atav Yad Olam. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Page 137.
Adonai Shomeret Gerim Yatom Be'almana Ye'oded B'derech Risha'im Ya'aved Yimloch Adonai Le'olam El Hai Tzion L'dor Vador. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kitozim Adoheinu Kinabata Ye'olam. Magi Derav Yaakov Hukab Mishpat Yisrael Lo Aseh Lechem Lechal Goy Umash Patim Baal Yedaum.
Hallelujah. Page 139.
Vayerem Kiren Liamo Tehila Lechol Hasidav Livnei Yisrael Am Karovo. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shordanai Shir Chadash. Wesor Malchechem Bezikim V'nibidehem Bechavlei Varzel Va'asot Bahem Mishpat Katuv Hadarhu Lechol Hasidav. Hallelujah.
Page 141, Psalm 150.
Hallelujah. 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 El Bekadsho. Hallelujah. 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 Vivoratav. Hallelujah. 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 Take a shofar. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Nevel v'chinor. Hallelujah. 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 B'tov u'machol. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. B'minim v'hugav. Hallelujah. 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 B'tziltzalei Shama. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. B'tziltzalei Truah. Kol haneshama tehallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehallelujah. Hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehallelujah. Hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Elohim Elohei Yisrael Oseleth Niflaot Levado Uvaruch Shem Kivodo Leolam V'Yamalei Kivodo Et Kol Haaretz. Amen. Amen.
Please rise. We're on page 142.
Vayevarech David Adonai Kol Hazak Vayomer David. Baruch Adonai. Atahu Adonai Elohim Asher Bacharta Ba'Avram V'Hotzei Tomei Or Kasdim V'Samta Shemo Avraham Umatzata Et Rivavo Ne'eman Lefanecha V'Chalot Imo Habri V'Tei By the Hayam Bekak Tarif Nehem V'Yavru V'Tok by Hayam by Yabashah the Et Rod Fehem Hishlachta Vim Solot Kimo Even by Yamim Azim.
Page 143.
Vayar Yisrael et Hayad Hagadola Asher Asa Adonai B'Mitzrayim Vayir Ha'am et Adonai Vayaminu B'Adonai Uvnit Moshe Abdo Az Yashir Moshe Uvenei Israel Et Hashirat Hazol Adonai Vayomru Lemor Ashir Adonai Ki Gaoga Sus V'Rachavo Rama V'Hayam Ozi V'Zimratya V'Yehi Lishua Zeheli V'Hanavehu Elohei Avivam Amenu Adonai Ish Melchama Adonai Shemo Markevot Paro V'Chela Yaram Bayam Umicha Shalishav Tuvehu Vehamsu Tehomot Yechas Yumu Yahardu Vimsot Kmohaven Yemincha Adonai Medari Bahakola Yemincha Adonai Yichamocha Belim Adonai Yichamocha Nedar Bakadosh Adonai Himloch Le'olam Va'ed Adonai Himloch Le'olam Va'ed Ki Adonai Hamucha Umoshe Ba'goyim Va'alu Moshi'im B'char Tzion Yishpot Et Har Esav V'hital Adonai Hamucha V'haya Adonai L'melech Al Kol Ha'aretz Bayom Hahu Yiyeh Adonai Echad U'shmo Echad.
You may be seated, page 145.
Nishmat Kol Chai
Tevarech et Shimcha Adonai Eloheinu V'roch Basar.
Nehalecha unshabecha umbarecha umbarech Shem kachechab ka'amor v'David baruchi nafshi et Adonai v'chol kiravai et Shem kasho ha'el bata'atsumo duzecha hagadol b'chivod shemecha hagibor v'netzach v'hanora b'noratecha ha'melech ha'yoshev al kisei ram v'nisa.
Shakach, a big Yasher Koch to John Cohen. Thank you so much for leading Pasuke. Beautiful. Oh, yeah.
Special.
Oh, there's some candy coming your way.
Get to pick your color. Green one, that's good. Yeah, Shakah. Now, is that the first time you've done that? No, it's been a long time. All right, so I won't do the Shechianu on you, but we'll say Shechianu, welcome back. That's awesome. Yeshikoah. So we are going to move forward in our service, and I'm recruiting some help. That's in the way of Max. So if you want to come on up, Max, and you can sit back here with me for a few minutes. And we're going to move through Shachrit this morning, and Max is going to help with a couple of parts of it, just to kind of get used to being up here, and because he has the first bar mitzvah of the fall season, of the new year, right? Lech Lecha, so, which was you, wasn't it? No, you were Vayera, what were you? He was also Bereshit. But anyway, I haven't memorized them yet. Usually by now I'm figuring out who everybody is. But Max has Lech Lecha early on in the year, and Samuel, you were November, close to November. You were later, right? Chayesara, right? So it was a couple little bit behind there, right? So these are always fun parshiot. But Max is going to start off our bar and bat mitzvah season, if you will, in the fall after the holidays. So he's going to come up and help me in just a few minutes with a little bit of shachrit. So we move forward on page 147, and we say again Yasher Koach to John for a beautiful Psukei de Zimra. Thanks for helping out. Middle of 147. Shochen ad maharom v'kadosh shemo. V'chatzuv ranenu tzadikim baronai la yisharim navatehila b'fi yisharim titalal uvdivrei tzadikim titbarach ubilshon chasidim titromam uvkerev kedoshim titkadash uvemakahalot rivevot amcha beit Yisrael barina yid parshim chamakinu b'chol dor vador שכן חובת כל היצורים לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו להודות להלל לשבח לפאר לרומם להדר לברך להלל ולקהלי סל כל דברי שירות ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך. We rise. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Malkeinu El HaMelech HaGadol VaGadosh B'Shamayim V'Haaretz Berachot V'Hodaot Me'ata V'Yad Olam Baruch Ata Adonai El Melech Gadol B'Tishbachot El HaHodaot Adon HaNiflaot הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אלכי העולמים. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ביעמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. 149 Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai Mevorach Le'olam Va'ed. 150 at the top. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Yotzer Or Uvorei Choshech Oseh Shalom Uvorei Et HaKol. You are welcome to be seated. HaKol Yajuch HaRam We're towards the bottom of 150. En kerkecha ve'en zulatecha efes biltecha umidam elach. En kerkecha ve'en zulatecha efes biltecha umidam elach. En kerkecha ba'olam hazeh ve'en zulatecha olam haba. Efes biltecha limot HaMashiach v'ein domeh lecha letchiat hametim. El Adon al kol hamasim baruch umvorach v'fi kol neshama gadlo v'tuvo malei olam da'at udvuna sovevimoto. Amid el achayot hakodesh v'nedar b'chavod al hamerkava zechutu mishor lifnei chiso chesed v'rachamim lifnei chevodo. Tovim me'orot shebara Eloheinu yitzaram b'da'at b'vina u'paskel koach u'gvura Natan bahem liot moshlim bekerev tevel maleim zibum fikim noga naezivam bechol olam semechim betzetam v'sasim bevoam osim be'em maritzon konam. Pe'er v'chavod notnim lishmot tzahal verina lezecher malchuto kara lashemesh vayizrachu ra'a v'hitkin tzurat alvana shevach notnim lo kol teva maharom Tiferet ugedula serafim ve'ofanim ve'chayot hakodesh. 152. La'el asher shavat mikol ha'ma'asim be'yom ha'shvi'i v'talah. Titbarach Moshienu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha v'al me'orei or shasita yifaruch asela. 153. Titbarach tzureinu malkeinu v'go aleinu borei kedoshim yishtabach shimcha. Titbarach tzureinu malkeinu v'go aleinu borei kedoshim yishtabach shimcha. La'ad malkeinu yotzer mishartim v'asher mishartav kulam omdim berum olam. Titbarach tzureinu malkeinu v'go aleinu borei kedoshim yishtabach shimcha. Titbarach tzureinu malkeinu v'go aleinu borei kedoshim yishtabach shimcha. Umashmim be'yira yachad be'kol divrei Elohim chayim u'melech olam. Titbarach tzureinu malkeinu v'go aleinu borei kedoshim yishtabach shimcha. Titbarach tzureinu malkeinu v'go aleinu borei kedoshim yishtabach shimcha. Kulam ahuvim kulam birurim kulam giborim v'chulam osim b'yehema u'b'yiratzon konam v'chulam podchim epihem b'kedusha u'b'tahara v'shira v'zimra u'mvarachim u'mshabachim u'mfarim u'ma'aritzim u'makdishim u'mamlichim et shem ha'el ha'melech ha'gadol ha'gibor v'hanora kadosh hu. V'chulam mekablim alehem ol malchut shamayim zeh mizeh ונותנים רשות זה לזה להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח בשפה ורבים הקדושה כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך כל הארץ כבודו והאופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנסים לעומת שרפים לעומתם משבחים ואומרים ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. We're in the bottom of 153. לאל ברוך נימות ייתנו ברוך הבא. מחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה ראשית כמוהו יעשמו חסדו. We're on the bottom of 153. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. Page 154 we join together. Ahava rabba aftanu Adonai Eloheinu chem lagidol avitera chamalta aleinu Avinu malkeinu ba'avur avoteinu Shabbat chuvecha Avinu malkeinu vatelamden chukechayim kein techonenu tlamdenu Avinu ha'av harachaman Amrachem rachem aleinu V'tein b'libenu lehavinu haskil lishmoa lilmadu lilamed lishmor ve'lasot u'kayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha v'yahava V'ha'erinenu b'toratecha v'dahabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha v'yached lehevavenu li'ahava u'yir'a et shemecha v'lo nevosh le'olam v'oed v'lo Le'olam va'ed ki v'shem kodshecha hagadol v'hanora b'hatachnu nagila v'nismecha v'shuatecha. Page 154 in the middle, we join together the four corners of our talit as we prepare for the Shema and the V'ahavta. 154. V'havihenu le'shalom me'arba kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu kamemiyut le'artzeinu ki helpo el Yeshuatata uvanu b'charta mikol ha'belashon v'keravtanu l'shimcha hagadol Selah be'emet lehodot lecha u'yachecha bi'ahava Baruch atah Adonai, habocher bi'amo Yisrael be'ahava. 155 together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha b'derech uvshochpecha uvkumecha ukshartan le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtaftam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. We join together in the English 155. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all that is yours. These words that I command you this day shall be taken to heart. Teach them again and again to your children. Speak of them when you sit in your home, when you walk on your way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a symbol above your eyes. Inscribe them upon the doorposts of your homes and on your gates. We continue silently 156. In the middle of 156, you'll find the biblical instruction to wear the tzitzit, a reminder of the mitzvot. It's from Numbers 15. In just a few weeks, we'll be reading it. It's actually the maftir reading for Shlach Lecha. So page 156, we again hold together the four corners of the talit, reminding ourselves of the mitzvot, and that when we pull together to do the mitzvot together, that's when we really can make the world better together. Page 156. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta lehem v'asu lahem tzitzit al kanfei vigdehem ledorotam v'natnu al tzitzit hakanaf patil techelet V'haya lachem letzitzit uritem oto uschartem et kol mitzvot Adonai v'asitem otam v'lo taturu acharei levavchem yacharei nechem asher atem zonim achareihem Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. Let's see the Chaim Yanashai. We're on the top of 157. Ledor vador hu kayam ushmo kayam v'chiso nachon u'malchuto v'emunato la'ad kayamet. Uvrav chayim v'kayamim. So I'm going to take a seat for a second. I'll get you out to help. Emet shatahu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu Malkeinu melech avotenu Goalenu goel avotenu Yotzreinu tzur Yeshuatenu Pudenu matzilenu me'olam shemecha Ein Elohim zulatecha Ezrat avotenu atahu me'olam Aginu Moshe libnehem Acharechem el dor v'ador Baruch Hashem. We're on the last two lines of 157. Emet, 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 atahu rishon. Emet, 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 atahu acharon. Umi baladecha in lanu melech. Melech goel u'moshiach, umi baladecha in lanu melech, melech goel u'moshiach. Emet, 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 atahu rishon. Emet, 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 atahu acharon. Umi baladecha in lanu melech, Melech goel u'moshiach, umi baladecha in lanu melech, melech goel u'moshiach. 158. We're about 7 lines down on 158. Alzot shibechu ahuvim, alzot shibechu ahuvim, veromemu, 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 veromemu el, v'natnu yedidim, v'natnu yedidim, zmirot shirot v'tishbachot brachot v'hodaot, Lamelech el chai v'kayam, Ram v'nisa gadol v'nohora, Mashpil geim u'magbi hashefalim, Motzi asirim ufode anavim, V'ozer dalim. V'onel yahamo, v'onel yahamo, b'eit shav amelav. Tehilot le'el elyon, baruch hu mevorach. Moshe Miriam u'bnei Yisrael, lecha anu shira, v'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot osefele, shira chadasha shibchu gilim l'shimchat al sfat hayam, yachad kulam hodu vehim lichu veyamru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. We rise. Tzur Yisrael, Kluma v'Ezrat Yisrael, Uvdechinu mecha, Yehuda v'Yisrael, Go aleinu, Adonai tzvaot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. We begin the Amidah together, page 159 at the top, and then on the left side. Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Eloheinu
Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Hasdei Avot, Umevigo Elif Nevenehem, Leman Shemo Be'ava, Melech Ozer Ufoked, Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ufoked Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye Meitim Atah, Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye Meitim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Baal Gevurot, Umidah Melach, Melech Memit Umechayeh, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'nemanat Alachayot Meitim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaMeitim. 161. Nikadesh et shimcha ba'olam, kishem shemakdishim oto bishmei marom, kakatuv al yad nevi'echa, v'karazeh el zev yamar. Kadosh, 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 Adonai tzvaot, melochol haaretz kevodo. Az b'kol ra'ash gadol, adir v'chazak mashmim kol, mitnasim l'mat serafim, l'matam baruch yomeru, baruch kevod Adonai mimkom chamalkenu tzofia. Mimkom chamalkenu tzofia, v'timloch aleinu ki mechakim anachnu lach, matai timloch b'tzion, b'karov b'yamenu le'olam v'ahed, tishkon, titgadal v'titgadash, b'toch Yerushalayim irecha, Ledor vador, netzach, netzach, netzachim, v'einenu tirena malchutecha, Al Yedei David Mashiach Tzidkecha, Yimloch Adonai Le'olam Elohayim Tzion, Ledor Vador, Hallelujah. Ledor Vador Nagid God Lecha, Ul Netzach Netzachim Kedushatcha Nakdish, B'shivchacha Eloheinu Mipinu Lo Yamush Le'olam Va'ed, Ki El Melech Gadol V'Kadosh, Ata, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Yismach Moshe b'manach chelko, Kevin Amak Ratolel.
When you're through, you're welcome to be seated. As always, take your time. Page 165 in the middle, you'll find Sim Shalom. It's our last bracha, our seventh bracha, our prayer for peace in the Amidah. And certainly as we see what has been going on in Israel, adding some extra thoughts for Shalom, certainly giving support to our Israeli brothers and sisters as they endure yet more terrorism, unfortunately. But certainly asking for Shalom for the world, bringing that sense of peace into the world is a tough job for all of us, and we have a lot of work to do, but uttering those words, reminding ourselves of the priority of bringing peace, not just certainly to the Middle East, but peace to our world in general, is part of what our mission is as being partners with God in the process of creation. So if you'll join with me on page 165, again, as we remind ourselves that Shalom is a priority for us. Middle of 165. Sim Shalom ba'olam tova uvracha chen v'chesed v'rachamim Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha barchenu avinu kulanu ke'echad bior panecha Ki bior panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Sim shalom ba'olam tova uvracha chen v'chesed v'rachamim Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha Torat Chaim v'ahavat chesed
וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום, שים שלום בעולם, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך, וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך שים שלום בעולם, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. Page 167, we conclude Shacharit service with Kaddish Shalem. Yitkanal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, v'yalma divrach yiruteh, v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon v'yimechon, uv'chayedecho b'Yisrael, ba'agalav v'zman kari v'yimeru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach, le'olam olal me'olmaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitramam yinaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha v'richu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran b'yama v'imeru. Amen. Titkabal tzoloton uva'uton dechol Yisrael kol dama v'hundi v'shamaya v'imeru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen. Ohoseh shalom bimromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, imru. Amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. On page 168, we move forward into the Torah service as Rabbi Richards comes and joins us again, and we have some of our B'nai Mitzvah students are here, past and present, so if you will come back forward, Max, come on back up. Come on, you can bring your sister if she wants to come with you. I'm going to give her the choice. Uh-oh. All right, you're on your own. Oh, good, he's not even waiting for me to ask him. Come on up. Am I missing anybody else? Nope. All right. And you'll see, you guys will come on over here. I'm going to get out of the way. Hold on a minute. Let me get out of the way. Come talk over here for a second. For those of you who've not been here, you guys go corral yourselves right there. There you go. Okay, get spread out if you need. You see that Sherry is passing out our scarves. That's the word. That's what they are. If you haven't been here in the last number of weeks, we have been taking on the tradition, an Iraqi tradition, I believe, a Sephardic tradition for sure, that they used to wave scarves at the Torah, especially from the women's section, where the women would not have touched the Torah, as it wouldn't be paraded around in an Orthodox shul. And so they would take their scarves and wave them, and Rabbi Ricky Arad said, you know what, we can use this in a very creative way. And so what we've been doing is taking a scarf, and when we take the Torah out, since we're not yet, I'll say not yet because I don't know how it might change, but we're not yet taking the Torah around in the sanctuary, and because we're not being able to parade around with the congregation, being able to be near and touch the Torah, we've taken on this new tradition of waving the scarf when you see the Torah, when the Torah when the Ark is open, when the Torah is taken out. It's a sign of respect,
and it's a sign of support and a sign of love for the Torah and for support for our B'nai Mitzvah who are up here. So that's the scarf that you might be receiving, and thank you, Sherry, for doing that. So page 168, you'll find Seder Hotza'at Torah, our service for taking out and studying the Torah. We have our members of our, actually all three of you are 7th grade class, right? Or you're 8th grade, 7th grade. Yeah, this is our whole class, right? Yeah, got it. So you will have the honor of helping to lead the Torah service. And Leah, are you doing anything special next week? Are you like showing up? No? Not coming? Really? She's not coming. You get the week off next week, guys. Sorry. I think you're going to be celebrating a bat mitzvah. Is that correct? Am I right? Did I have that correct? Oh, good. So we are thrilled you're here today to help out, and we're going to have some fun next week as well. So page 168, all of you on the bima, along with Rabbi Richards and myself, if you will get us started. And we ask the congregation to go ahead and rise. 1, 2, 3. Elohim Adonai, v'yen k'maasecha, malchutecha malchut, kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'hador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch, le'olam va'ed. Adonai osliamo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom, v'arachamim,
etir v'etzona, et Zion, Tivnei Yerushalayim, Tivnei Yerushalayim, Ki v'cha levad batachnu, Melech el Ram v'nisa Adonai. Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael, b'kdushato. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, as we stand before the Torah, your most precious gift to us, we acknowledge that these are the sacred words which our ancestors learned and taught and preserved for us as a heritage to all generations. May we, their children's children, ponder the words of the Torah. May we find, as they did, wisdom in its mitzvot and meaning in its stories. May we discover your presence in our lives as we implant the Torah's teachings in our hearts. Together we recite the bracha that reminds us that the mitzvah of studying Torah adds holiness to our lives each and every day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen. We continue page 170 by the little arrow Be'anarachetz. Velishme Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Anaimot Tushbechan,
On page 171, you'll find Shema Echad Gadlu. We repeat after each of the first two lines as all of you on the beam will lead us.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shema.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shema.
Gadol Adonai iti, Onehamem Shema Yachdav.
Adonai Hagedula, V'Hagevura, V'Hatiferet,
V'Hanetzach V'Hashamayim V'Haaretz V'Hashamayim V'Haaretz Adonai Amamlecha V'Hamikaseh V'Chol Eros Ramemu Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu V'Nishtachavu V'Nishtachavu V'Adam Raglav Kadoshu Ramemu Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu V'Nishtachavu V'Nishtachavu V'Har Kodsho Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu.
As the Torah is placed on the shulchan, you are welcome to be seated. Thank you all. We're going to move you back.
Oops, sorry. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So this week has been dominated with a lot of things. One of them has been my Facebook page, which I don't post much, but I like to read what other people post. There's been a lot of opinions and conflict, but about something that you might not expect. Of course, there's all the things happening in Israel. It's challenging, and we're sending our thoughts there. But the conflict on my Facebook feed is all about the Pew Report. Y'all know what the Pew Report is? Great. Here to tell you about a little tsuris, a little woe in my life as a conservative rabbi. I'm sure Rabbi Cohen can relate. See, there's this report that comes out that's done by Pew. There are lots of reports that Pew does, I guess. But the one that I'm familiar with is the Jewish Pew Report, which comes out far too frequently. I don't know if the last one was in 2013, maybe it was much more recent, but they just released one the last, week. And the report gives all sorts of numbers, mostly on American Jewry. They interview, 600 Jews, and they say, this is Jewish America today, and here's what we should worry about. And so, of course, it becomes this great point of worrying, because what do? They get numbers, and it says things like, conservative Judaism average age is 67, but Orthodox Judaism's age average is 35. So conservative Judaism will just be gone tomorrow if we're not careful. And then they find other things to worry about, right? And they say, the intermarriage numbers show that if you're intermarried, your chances of having an observant Jew just 2 generations later is infinitely smaller, blah, blah, blah. And then my favorite one, of course, is they have a thing that says how many people affiliate with Judaism. And let's say, oh yeah, I'm a Jew. And then how many of you believe in God? And it's like this many. I'm like, oh, the Jewish atheist, which we know well. But anyhow, you wouldn't think this report would do so much damage, but what happens is people read the report, and the report is extensive, you can find it online, and they start creating scenarios in which it's doom and gloom. Like, look at the numbers, they say, because I saw this over and over on my Facebook. Look at the numbers. We're dying out as a people. Tomorrow might be the last day. What are we going to do about it? And they start getting scared and worried because of numbers and numbers and numbers. And it's funny because I even had somebody talking to me and they were like, well, Ben, you just have to understand. It's all about the numbers. The numbers don't lie, right? He said, if we can just find that perfect number, we can solve the problem. I was like, what are you talking about? It seemed like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where somebody pulls out a 42 and everybody goes, oh, we got it. It's solved. No problem. And I said to them what I'm going to say to you. You didn't even know the Pew Report was a point of concern, but I'm going to tell you not to panic about what you didn't know you shouldn't panic about a little while ago, which is that you shouldn't worry just about the numbers, because the numbers only tell you a little bit. And if we had the perfect number, would it solve the problem? Is there even really a problem? I think the problem, honestly, is when we try to quantify something that isn't about quantity, it's about quality. If Judaism was about quantity, we would have lost 1,000,000 times over. There are like 7 Jews in the world. But it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And so, counting has its purposes, but I would say, before you start saying doom and gloom, Judaism's done, this or that is happening, pump the brakes for a second. Let's try to look a little deeper at why it can be dangerous to try to quantify the unquantifiable. This week's Torah portion, Parsha Bamidbar, what do we start with? Among other things, we start with a census. What's a census? A way of counting people. And you might say, that's great. See, they counted then, we can count now. Rabbi Ben, don't be so harsh against Pew. And I have nothing against Pew. But when they start counting, what happens? Are they counting for the purpose of knowing all of the Israelites and all of their needs and what's going to come and everything? No, if you look, the first few verses, who do we count? We count the men who are 20 and up. The men who are 20 and up, which means we aren't even counting half of the people, right? Because let's say they're half women and half men. That seems like a reasonable assumption. So if we're only counting the men, we're just counting 50%, right? That's not a very good scope of the population. And because we're only counting 20 and up, we're not even counting the men who are 19 and below, which means chances are we're counting a smallage percent of the population than 50%. So then you might say, oh, that's not very representative of the entire people. But God says to count the people for what purpose? It seems like the purpose is for war. And apparently they don't want women to go to war, and they don't want children under the age of 20, even if they're male, to go to war. And they don't want the Levites to go to war. And so they are counting the people for a very specific purpose, which is just to know how big the army will be if we need to raise an army quickly, right? It has a very specific, defined purpose. Don't take any more data from it than that's how many people there are to go fight. Don't assume that because we have this number, that it means that all Israelites are hulking people with big arms, that they like to fight. Don't take any extra ideas from the idea of this census. It has a very specific, particular purpose, and that's it, right? And if you were to take that census and try to make it a bigger thing and say, oh, this or that need is being attended to, it would just be inaccurate. That's how I feel about the Pew Report, is that it can be useful, but how many Jews did they actually survey? A small percentage. You know how I know that it isn't super representative of the whole country? Because it said, how do you connect with your Judaism? And they had different things like book club. And you know what was missing from the list? Texas kosher barbecue. So I know they didn't interview a single San Antonio Jew, or probably any Texas Jew. Right? They got a bunch of guys in Jersey to say what they thought. And Jersey Judaism is a little different from Texas Judaism. So it's not so representative. And the tradition says so too when we take a census. So they take this census so they know how many people can go off to war. Well, later on, if you follow in the Bible, you find that censuses are taken again, and generally they're followed by plagues of disease. And the tradition says why? Like David tries to take a census. But he's not supposed to take a census. There's no reason to take a census in that moment. He's just doing it just to, I don't know, panic rabbis. So he starts taking a census, and God says, what are you doing, man? And David says, I was just curious. And God says, well, don't be. And then zap, plague. All these people die. And tradition says, from this we learn what? Take a census when there's a specific purpose, use it for the purpose, don't extrapolate, and do not take a census when you don't have a reason to. Why shouldn't we take a census when we don't have a reason to? Besides the fact that it's a waste of resources and time. Because of two things the tradition says. First off, your census is unlikely to be completely accurate. Because when you're counting hundreds of thousands of people, you're bound to miss some. And missing people is a really big problem. Right? Everybody is a universe unto themselves. When you miss a person, you miss an entire universe. That's problematic. And the second reason you should never take a census and why we don't count Jews for a minyan is because when you count people, what do you do to them? You reduce them into a number. You take a universe and you compact it into something that you can easily understand at the detriment of their potential. All of a sudden, you've taken a universe, a spark of infinite godliness, and you're saying, I can't contain that, so you're going to be number 3. Does it feel good to be number 3? No, it doesn't. You say to yourself, hey, I have a name. But the counter says, I don't care. It's easier for me to give you a number. So they count you, and you say, oh, that doesn't feel great. And the tradition says that's what happens. When you start counting people, you take their humanity and their godliness, and you kind of diffuse it away, and they just become a statistic, right? And that's not meaningful. That's not great. It's one of the reasons why the tradition is so anti-counting, because when you count, you don't have a reason to, you take the best parts of humanity, the infinite potential, and you make them finite and non-godly and human. And the tradition says, look, we understand there will be times to count, but be careful even when you do count, because you risk causing a plague, maybe not a literal one, but one of panic. I had all these rabbis on my news feed this past week saying the world is coming to an end, 67%. And I said, 67% what? They said 67% of families that don't attend shul more than twice a year are unlikely to feel affiliated in the next 50 years. I said, that doesn't even make sense. And how do we know? How do we know? Did we go around to every single person? Or did we ask a group of people who felt like volunteering information? A lot of the times, the ones who tell us things are the ones who are either very happy or very unhappy. But what about that average Jew in the pew saying like, hey, I enjoy parts of my Judaism, right? We forget about them. And so I think one of the answers to the whole question is in our Haftorah. In the Haftorah, the prophet says, look, you might count today, but stop. And here's the verse. It's Hosea 2:1. The number of the people of Israel shall be like that of the sands of the sea, which cannot be counted. That's the goal. We might start in a place of humanity and, we need defined numbers, and I need the number, and I need the solution. But ultimately, we need to grow out of that mentality. Faith is not quantifiable. I can't tell you how much you believe in God, and you can't tell me how much. It's not a number, it's a feeling. And I can't say to you, you are just this. It's not fair. It limits your godliness. And so, even though you didn't know you shouldn't be concerned about it, I'm telling you once again, don't worry. The Pew Report is just a small piece of a puzzle. It's one angle, one view, one possibility. How accurate is it? How do we know what's going to happen next? You know how you know what's going to happen next? You get in a room with a bunch of people who care, and then you have a conversation and you say, what do you think we should do? How do you think we can improve? Where do you have strengths that we can use? Where are we missing the mark that we can start hitting it? You have conversations with people, and then just as Judaism has done the last thousands of years, it will continue to persist. There's something wonderful in the quality of Judaism that you can't put a number on. It's not 42 or 67. It's something deeper and bigger. When we count, we make the mistake of limiting that bigness. We make the mistake of limiting the potential, the godliness in the world. Count occasionally. Do it with a lot of hesitancy, skepticism. Always keep in mind that people can surprise you. The numbers don't always tell us where everything's going. And don't panic. Someday they'll take that survey and the barbecue's going to end up in it. And then you can say it's an accurate survey. Shabbat Shalom.
We're going to move forward into our Torah service. Wonderful message to keep in mind. And you'll find the first Aliyah, page 777. We're in the midst of the text of Bamidbar, and we will be on verse 32. And here is where you see that the tribes were not only counted, as Rabbi Richards mentioned, but given a place to be. And so here we see the description of the tribes in the places that they are to be as they travel. So we'll be again 777, verse 32.
ויעזור והגן ויושיע לכל החוסים בו ונאמר אמן. הכל הבו גדל עלינו תנו כבוד לתורה יעמוד משה שמחה בן יעקב לראשונה ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו ואתם דבקים באדוניכם חיים כולכם היום.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorah. Baruch Adonai Hamvorah le'olam va'ed. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch et Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Ele pekudei b'nei Yisrael lebeit avotam. Kol pekudei hamachanot letzivotam. Shesh meod elef ushloshet alafim. V'chamesh meod v'chamishim. V'cha levim lo hokpakdu betoch b'nei Yisrael ka'asher tiva Adonai et Moshe vaya'asu b'nei Yisrael kekol asher tiva Adonai et Moshe kinhanu lediglekem v'ken nasa'u ish lemishpekotav al beit avotav.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. That Melissa was in the Torah trope class that we had online. And wait a minute, don't go anywhere. Hold on. She gets a piece of candy because this is the second Torah reading she's done, but really the first one she did with learning trope. So we say Yasher Koach to her. Here, wait. You gotta give your beautiful job. Tag. You're it. We're going to be on page 777, verse 1, as we begin chapter 3 of the Mishpah.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
ואלה תולדות אהרון ומשה ביום דיבר אדוני את משה בהר סיני. ואלה שמות בני אהרון הבכור נדב ואביהו אלעזר ואיתמר. אלה שמות בני אהרון הכהנים המשוחים אשר מלידם לכהן. וימות נדב ואביהו לפני אדוני להקריבם אש זרה לפני אדוני במדבר סיני, ובנים לא היו להם. ויקחן אלעזר ואיתמר על פני אהרון אביהם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yasher Koach. Everybody. We're going to pause here for Misha Berach for Cholim.
משפרח אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב, אמותינו שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים. Alan Goldberg, Amber France, Ann Francis, Anna Silva, Arnold Gorlick, Avram Glazner, Bob Reynolds, Bob Schiffman, Bob Stewart, Carolyn Devon, David Siegel, Don Alexander, Debbie Danforth, Tunneling Strickland, Dr. Les Feldman, Elaine Munoz, Elna King, Esther Magyar, Gabriel Joseph Braun, Garney Griggs, George Geisen, Gerald Karsman, Ginger Middleman Sledge, Gregory Seelig, Grover Shockley, Iris Picone, Jackie Geisen, Jeanette Cobb, Joseph Picone, Judy Stewart, Kimberly Lang, Lily Williams, Louis Navis, Luann Horn, Maria Beck, Marion Braun, Mark Hermelin, Mia Castro, Nehemiah Levin, Patsy Friedler Cantor, Patty Pillay, Rene Oso Jr., Reuben Klein, Robert Cover, Robert Teplitz, Roselle Simon Lebo, Rosario Vasquez, Sarah Purcell, Sarah Ibarra, Sharon Abelo, Sharon Bowling, Sharon Hermelin, Steve Cohen, Tristan France, Victor Ikaztegi Delara, Ahavashira Badchana Leah, Adam Ben Sara, Alicia Bas Devora, Elisa Bat Masha Meira, Ariel David Ben Sara, Arya Ben Ada, Bachmin Yoshua Ben Chana Batya, Bela Bat Sora, Baruch Meir Chaim Ben Leah, Batya Leah Bat Esther, Bela Bat Shira, Bela Bat Malka, Bela Bat Rivka, Beowulf Ben Esther, Benjamin Ben Chana, Rachia El Bat Malka Esther, Chaim Ben Bela, Chana Bat Ruth, Chana Bat Yuda, Janita Bat Miriam, Chaya Bat Minna, Daniel Ben Sara, David Chaim Ben Tzipora, Eitam Ben Dina, Elisheva Bat Devora, Esther Rivka Bat Devora, Fagel Esther Bat Rachel, Figi Riva Bat Basha, Faivel Ben Rachel, Fredel Bat Moshe, Hadassah bat Reah Leah, Hannah Sarah bat Basha, Hinda bat Chava, Leah Rivka bat Miriam, Leah Devorah bat Miriam, Malka Simba bat Elka, Malka bat Sarah, Malka bat Zev, Masha bat Zismael, Meir Leah bat Zipporah, Miriam bat Bela, Miriam bat Bracha, Moshe ben Yetta, Moshe ben Yisrael bat Chaya, Moshe Katriel ben Chana, Nachum ben Tovia, Nachama bat Yaakov, Noach ben Dina, Pinchas Belba ben Leah, Rachel bat Devorah, Raphael ben Wolf, Rufal Meir ben Nachama, Reuben ben Peretz, Reuben Shmuel ben Sarah, Reuben Simcha ben Miro, Rivka Rachel bat Esther Razel, Rivka bat Rosa, Shimon ben Chana, Shlomo ben Lazer, Shmuel Chaim ben Yakova, Shoshana bat Michal, Shoshana bat Pearl, Tova bat Sarah, Tzipporah bat Michal, Yaakov ben Nechama, Yudid ben Gittel, Yudid Ruth bat Sarah, Yudid Golda bat Elka, Yisrael ben Sarah, Yoel ben Yosef, Yosef ben Abraham ben Sarah, Yosef ben Ephraim, Fishal Halevi, Zev Shaul ben Chaya, Tzviah Miriam bat Abigail Batya. If you have additional names to add, feel free to do so at this time. Akadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihim Lahachazikam Orachotam Vayishlach Lahem Meher Refuah Shlema Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf V'Toch Sharach HaCholim V'Chazek Yedidei HaOskim Etzarchechem Shabbatim Leizok Refuah Krovo Lavo Hashta Bagal Vizman Karhi V'Nomar Amen. Refuah Shlema, complete healing to all of those in need.
We move forward on 778. Actually, it's going to be verses 5 through 10 on the, you can not look at the flyer in a minute, but it's 5 through 10 on verse 778 is our next reading. And we see the moving forward with instructions to the priests, or to the Levites rather, who see the description of their role in the Mishkan. So the Levites are learning what that is that they are to be doing.
Yamdu, Elisha, Ben Abraham, Samuel ben Elisha, Aliyah Shlishi.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaBorach. Baruch Adonai HaBorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe Lemor Hakrev et Matei Levi v'ha'amadita oto lifnei Aharon HaKohen v'sher tu oto v'shamru et mishmarto v'et mishmeret kol ha'edah lifnei Ohel Moed v'avod et avodat HaMishkan V'shamru et kol kilei ohel moed ve'et mishmeret b'nei Yisrael v'avod et avodat hamishkan v'natata et v'natata et haviim la'aharon uvanav nitunim hemalo me'et b'nei Yisrael v'Israel ve'et Aharon ve'et banav tivkod v'shamru et kihunatam v'hazar hakarev yuma.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Yitzkata ve'yitzkata shemerapa el batifra kirte ve'amlech malchute ve'chayechon uvyom echon uvchayedecho beit Yisrael bagala ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבם מבורך לעולם עולם ההמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי קודשא בריחו לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה בנחמתה תמהירן ועמה ויאמרו אמן. Tzvi Dov, Ben Aaron Shlomo, Bechaya Sarah, Achrona.
Ruvet Adonai Amorah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bacha banu mikol omin v'nasa lanu et toso. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor va'ani hine lekakti et havi'im mitov b'nei Yisrael tachahat kol bechor peterechem mipnei Yisrael v'hayu li havi'im ki li kol bechor b'yahom hakoti kol bechor be'eret mitzrayim hikdashti li kol bechor b'Yisrael me'adam ad behema liyu ani Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher nasa lanu Torah temet v'yei olam nota v'shalheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yam Hod. Is it Chorus something? Chorus Michael. Ben Sosha. Moshe Zeva Levi. Matir Chazak.
Got a little bit, so we're going to fix it here, but we're going to repeat that Aliyah just read, so you'll find it on 770.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Voed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor va'ani hine lekakti et havi'im mitov b'nei Yisrael kol bechor peterechem mipnei Yisrael v'hayu li havi'im ki kol bechor b'yahom hakoti kol bechor be'eret mitzrayim hikdashti li kol bechor b'Yisrael me'adam ad behema liyu ani Adonai.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
We rise for the tying up of the Sefer Torah as we say Yeshakach to John for reading his Aliyot. As we join together.
Ezot HaTorah Asher Tzad Moshe Livnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai B'yad Moshe Torah, 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 Torah,
Torah, Torah, Torah, Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. You are welcome to be seated. The stand is right behind you.
Yes. Okay, do you want this?
Let Kevin get set up. The Haftarah for this morning is taken from the words of the prophet Hosea, as Rabbi Richards mentioned. And as you will see at the beginning, again, he mentioned the very beginning, where the number of the people of Israel shall be like the sands of the sea. It's the counterpoint to, as he pointed out, to our counting a specific number. Here we are told that the number is uncountable. It says the sand of the sea, and it can't be measured or counted. This is a lovely Haftarah, actually, because it talks a lot about the connection between God and Israel as one based in Ahava, as one based in love. But yet there was some infidelity in this relationship, and we see that God and Israel now have, in some ways, parted, and that covenant has to be renewed between them. You'll see the language ve'erastich li le'olam. Anyone who's had a wedding, you might know those verses. This is where it comes from. I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me in righteousness and justice, and in loving kindness and compassion and faithfulness. It also is familiar because we recite it as we bind the tefillin on our hands each morning. So that's the verses that we recite as we put the tefillin on. Again, that the binding, we're binding ourselves to God in a sense. So that's where this language comes from. So as we recite the words of Hosea, you can think about, those of you who put on tefillin, those words that we say, and as we hear them chanted today, we're reminded that the qualities that every person has to have in order to create a meaningful relationship with God and those around us. We have to have kindness and compassion and faithfulness if we're going to be in relationships with one another, and then certainly relationships with God. So keep that in mind as you'll find the Haftarah following the introductory bracha on page 787.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'Moshe abdo u'Yisrael amo v'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek v'haya mispar b'nei Yisrael kechol hayam asher lo yimad ve'lo yisafer v'haya bimkom asher yamer lahem lo ami atem yamer lahem b'nei el chai v'nikbetu v'nei Yehuda v'nei Yisrael yachdav v'samu lahem rosh echad ve'alu min haaretz ki gadol yom Yisrael imru lachechem ami v'lachotechem ruchama rivu v'imechem rivu ki Hi lo ishti ve'anochi lo isha v'taser zenuneha mipaneha v'nafufeha miben shadeha pen afshi tena aruma והצגתיה כיום היוולדה, ושמתיה כמדבר, ושתיה כארץ צייה, והמיתיה בת שמה, ואת בניה לא ארחם, כי בני זנונים המה, כי זנתה עמם, חובישה הורתם, כי אמרה אלך אחרי מאווי, נותני לחמי ומימי, צמרי ופשתי, שמני ושיקויי, לכן הנה סך את דרכך בסירים, וגדרתי את גדרה, ונביאותיה לא תמצא, ורדפה מאביה ולא תשיג אותם, וביקשתם ולא תמצא, ואמרה אלך ואשובה אל אישי הראשון, כי טוב לי אז מעתה, והיא לא ידעה, כי אנוכי נתתי לה הדגן, והתירוש והיצהר, וכסף הרביתי לה, וזהב עשו לה בעל. לכן אשוב ולקחתי דגני ביתו, ותירושי במועדו, והצלתי צמרי ופשתי לכסות את ערוותה, ואתה אגלה את נבולתה לעיני מאהביה, ואיש לא יצילנה מידי. והשפעתי כל משושה הגה חדשה ושבתה וכל מועדה, והשימותי גפנה ותאנתה, אשר אמרה אתנה המה לי, אשר נתנו לי מאהבי. ושמתי ליד, ואכלתם היד השדה, ופקדתי עליה את ימי הבעלים, אשר תקטיר להם, ותעד נזמה, וכלייתה, ותלך אחרי מאהביה, ואותי שכחה נאום אדוני. לכם הנה אנוכי מפתח, והולכתיה המדבר, ודיברתי על ליבה, ונתתי לה את כרמיה משם, ואת עמק אחור לפתח תקווה, ואנתה שמה כימי נעוריה, וכיום עלותה מארץ מצרים. והיה ביום ההוא נאום אדוני, תקראי אישי ולא תקראי לי עוד בעלי, והסירותי את שמות הבעלים מפיה, ולא יזכרו עוד בשמם. וחרתי להם ברית ביום ההוא, עם היד השדה, עם עוף השמיים, ורמש האדמה, וקשב וחרב ומלחמה אשבור מן הארץ, והשכבתים לבטח. וירשתיך לי לעולם, וירשתיך לי בצדק ובמשפט, ובחסד וברחמים. וירשתיך לי באמונה, Ve'adata et Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer ve'oseh, hamdaber umkayem, shekol devaro ve'emet v'tzedek. Ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ne'emanim devarecha, ve'ravarecha midvarecha, achur lo yashuv reikam, Ki el melech ne'eman v'rachaman ata baruch ata Adonai. Ha'el ha'ne'eman b'chol devarav. Rachem al Tzion ki hi beit chayenu ve'la'aluvat nefesh toshiya b'mheira ve'yameinu baruch ata Adonai. Mesamech Tzion bevaneha. Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu be'eliyahu hanavi avdecha U'malchut Beit David Meshichecha Bimheira Yavoho Ve'yagil Libenu Al Kiso Lo Yeshev Zar V'lo Yinchalu Od Acherim Et Kevodo Ki V'Shem Kochecha Nishbata Lo Shelo Yichmenero Le'olam Voed Baruch Ata Adonai Magen David Al HaTorah Ve'al HaAvodah Ve'al HaNavim Ve'al Yom HaShabbat Hazeh Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Likdusha belimnucha lechabod ultifaret Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu Anachnu modim lach Umvarchim otach Yitbarach shimcha befi kochai Tamid leolam voed Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Wow, that was a good shot.
Now you got a piece.
All right.
If you're new and wondering, because I know the Roismans back here, they're like, what's that about, right? So we have the tradition, which many congregations do, of course, of throwing candy after the bar bat mitzvahs finish their Haftarah. So Kevin got pinged today, apparently. But that's why we use the soft candies. But I figure we're here, and even without a bar bat mitzvah, we should get a little bit of candy ourselves today, right? Yeah, why not? So, I got to pay the toll. Here, guys, quick, fast, run, quickly, move. Here,
Wow.
here we go. There's your pieces. They always ask me, did you throw the candy yet? We didn't throw it today, guys, but there's a piece for each of you. So if you'll turn to page 177, you'll find the prayer for our country, as we always add our specific prayers for the country and for certainly the state of Israel and for peace today. So page 177, if you'll read with us together the prayer for our country as we work towards the country being, our United States being united, and certainly that we live together, even as we have differences, that we can work together to make this country a place of freedom and of kindness and of friendship, and a place that we all can be proud of being a part of. So page 177, you'll find the prayer for our country as we read together. Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessings upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials who faithfully devote themselves to the need of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. Adonai, God, whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that your spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many peoples and faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land.
May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say, Amen. On page 178, of course, you'll find a prayer for the state of Israel. As we see what is going on there, we certainly, as I mentioned earlier, have, of course, to add some extra prayers for shalom. We know it is a difficult situation. There are so many things going on, and we're trying to keep up with what is going on. And by the way, just before I forget, we will be joining on Zoom for our Havdalah program that we had already scheduled, and we will actually have the opportunity to listen to the AIPAC representative of our area tonight, learn a little bit more about what's going on the ground in Israel. But as we turn to 178, on the left side of the page and the small print, we find our special prayer for the state of Israel as we mourn the loss of innocent lives and as we pray that we can restore a sense of shalom to the land. So 178, we join together. Ribono shel olam, kabel na berachamim uveratzon et tefilotenu ba'ad medinat Yisrael. Sovereign of the universe, accept in loving kindness and with favor our prayers for the state of Israel, her government, and all who dwell within her boundaries and under her authority. Open our eyes and our hearts to the wonder of Israel, and strengthen our faith in your power to work redemption in every human soul. Grant us also the fortitude to keep ever before us those ideals upon which the state of Israel was founded. Grant courage, wisdom, and strength to those entrusted with guiding Israel's destiny to do your will. Be with those on whose shoulders Israel's safety depends, and defend them from all harm. Spread over Israel and all the world your shelter of peace, and may the vision of your prophet soon be fulfilled. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, velo yilmadu od milchama. Amen. We turn forward in our Siddur to page 181. There you'll find the concluding part of the Torah service. Those of you who are up here before, if you will come on back up, please, as you help us with the closing part of the Torah service. We find Ashrei on page 181. Here they come, as all of you lead us. Go up towards the mic so they can hear you, because people watching from afar and behind the cameras need to hear you. 181. 1, 2, 3. Ashrei Ashrei Veitecha Lo Yalalu Hasvela Ashrei Ham Shekachalo Ashrei Ham Shadonai Elohav Tehila LeDavid Aromim Kadrula Melech Echa Kamim Kalealam Ba'ed B'chol yom avarchecha v'yalala shimcha le'olam va'ed Gadol Adonai milana me'od v'litulato ein cheker Dor ledor yeshabach ma'asecha ugvarotecha yagidu Hadar kevodotecha v'divrei niflotecha asicha Ve'zuz narotecha yomeru ugdalatecha asaprena Zecherav tucha yaviu, tzikatecha yiranenu, chanun v'rachum Adonai, erech apayim mugdal chesed, tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav kol ma'asav. Yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yivarchucha, kevod malchutecha yomeru, uvratecha yidaberu, lehodia lifnei adam gevurotav, uchvod hadar malchuto, malchutecha malchut kol amim, B'chol dor v'ador, somech Adonai l'chol hanoflim, v'zokef l'chol hakfufim,
Enecho elecha yesaberu. Yatano ten lahem et ochlam bi'ito. Poteach et yadecha umaspia lecho chai ratzon. Tzadik Adonai bechol deracha v'chasid bechol ma'asav. Karov Adonai lechol korav lechol asher yikra'u v'emet. Retzon re'av yaseh v'et shavatam yishma v'yoshiem. Shomer Adonai et kol ahava v'et kol harshayim yashmid. Tilat Adonai edaber pi v'yarech habasar shemkat shomer labayim. V'anachnu nevarech ya ve'atav yad olam. Hallelujah. We rise for Seder Achnasat Torah. As we return the Torah to the Aron HaKodesh, page 183. Tehillah lecho chasidav lifnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Mizmor leDavid. Havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim. Havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz. Havu l'Adonai kavod shemo. Ishtachavu l'Adonai b'hadrat kodesh. Kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod hirim. Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai b'hakoach. Kol Adonai b'hadar. Kol Adonai shover arazim. Vayishaber Adonai et arzei halevanon. Vayarkidim kamo egel levanon v'siryon kemo v'nreimim. Kol Adonai chotzef lavotesh. Kol Adonai yachiel midbar. Yachiel Adonai midbar kadesh. Kol Adonai yecholel ayalot. Vayechesof yarot uvehechalo kulo omer kavod. Adonai lamalbo yahashav. Vayeshev Adonai melech leolam. Adonai oz le'amo yitei. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Uvnecha yamar. We're on 184, 3 lines from the bottom. It's Hayim Bi Lamachazim Ba Betofera Merusha As the Aron HaKodesh is closed, we remain standing for our brief Musaf service. You'll find it on page 184, as all of you on the Bima, along with Rabbi Richards, leads us 184. Thanks, guys. Amen.
V'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei decho beit Yisrael Bagala bagala uv'izman harim Yimeru amen Yehish me'rava mevorach Me'olam olam me'omaya Yitvarach Yitvarach Ve'yishtabach Yitzvar Yitzraman Yitnaseh Yitala Yitale Yitala Shmei Gudesha Berichu Leila Minvolikata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechem Hatada Mihiran Mi'alma V'meru Amen.
We begin the Amidah together, page 185.
Shabbat Yom Tamid, Ha'amayim, Ha'amayim, Ve'ahav Hashem ha'omerim, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshiachenu, Ve'hu Yashirenu, Ve'acham Hashenit, Le'nei Kol Chai, V'yot Lachem Elohim,
Ani Adonai Elohechem,
U'divrei kodesh katuv lemor,
Yimlov Adonai Elohim,
Ve'avai Tzion,
Ledor
Vador, Hallelujah. Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador, Ledor Vador,
Nagid Golecha. Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador, Nagid Golecha. U'netzach netzachim, kedushatecha nagdish, kedushatecha nagdish. V'shivchacha Eloheinu, v'nidinu lo yamush le'olam va'ed. Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador, Nagid Golecha. Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador,
Ledor Vador, Nagid Golecha. Yihamelech Gadol, Gadol v'Kadosh, Gadol v'Kadosh Ata. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Amen. Unto Shabbat.
Page 202.
Shalom bimrama, Uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru hamen, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom. Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'Yakol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'Yakol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'Yakol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'Yakol Yisrael. Amen.
We continue on page 203 with Kaddish Shalem.
Vita Arvita Man Vita Se Vita Dan Vita Le Vita La Smegu Shabri Leila Min Kon Vita Vita Tishakata Vinashamata Leila Min Mami Meru Amen. Vita Dov Amen. Yeah, Shema Baba Mishamaya, Yaima Bina, Israel, Nebu, Amen. Oh, say Shalom, Libama, oh, say Shalom, Hallelujah for Israel, Amen. Amen.
You may be seated. En Kelohenu is found on page 204.
Eloheinu, En Kadonenu, En Kemochenu, En Kemoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemochenu, Mi Kemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emochenu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shitinu, Avotenu, Lefanecha Ketoret Asamim.
Please rise for Aleinu, found on page 205.
Pashamayim ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני כי בוא לעולם ועד, ונלך, והיה אדוני ונלך כל הארץ, היום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, Oshema, 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 Oshema.
Sit down. You may be seated. You guys can sit here, figure out Adonolam. As we prepare to recite Kaddish today, we extend our condolences to Mark Samuels on the death of his mother Miriam Shlavsky. And we also extend our condolences to Kathy O'Neill on the death of her mother Peg. She's in Baltimore, I believe, still, and will be coming back, but I know the funeral was on Thursday. So I know that she would appreciate, both families, of course, would appreciate your hugs of support. As we recite Kaddish, we also keep in our thoughts those who are moving through the process of Shloshim, of the 30-day mourning period. So we extend our condolences to Rhonda Gorinsky and her family on the death of her father, Ronnie Radcliffe, and to our entire community, and to Alan Rosenstein on the death of Lisa Starr Rosenstein as well. We also mention the names of those whose yortzites occur today and the week that is coming. Sonia Belinsky, Anna Borenstein, Woodrow Frankel, B'nai Harris, Edna J. Saya, Beatrice Casson, Ruth Krakow, Thomas Levine, Lillian Levine, Donald Miner, May Moskowitz, Paula Platt, Felix Reif, Leja Rosen, Blanca Charlak, Leo Schwartz, Florence Strelke, and Abraham Williams. If there are any names I did not recite, you are welcome to recite them out loud at this time or in your hearts. As we turn to page 207, there you will find Kaddish Tome, the Mourner's Kaddish, those reciting, if you'll rise and join with me. Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, B'alma Divra Chirute, V'yamlich Malchute, V'chayechon, Uvyomechon, Uvchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Ubizman Kariv V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Leolam Olomei Olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May be seated. A few quick announcements. I mentioned the Havdalah earlier during the Torah service. Remember, tonight, 9 p.m. On Zoom, and we were already doing a Havdalah focused on Israel. We've been traveling around the world, thanks to CJ, who kind of got us started with our Havdalahs. We've done France, we did Egypt, we were moving to Israel, and appropriately, we will shift gears just a little bit in terms of how we do it tonight, as our local APAC representative, again, will be joining us and helping us to gain some perspective on what's going on in Israel in particular this week. So if you need the Zoom link, you can RSVP, send the RSVP at agudasachim.org. Right after Shabbat is over, someone will be checking that, so you can get that, or just check your email from Tuesday. Your Tuesday announcements email should have the link on there. Don't forget, we have our Erev Shavuot. Monday and Tuesday is Shavuot. We finish up our Omer period, and we move into the festival of Shavuot Sunday evening at 7 p.m., May 16th at 7 p.m. We hope you'll join us for our Shavuot service, which will include our 10th grade confirmation
class ceremony. They will be participating and sharing some words from the Bima. And hope you will join with us for that. And it's a festive time and a nice time for our to give support to our teenagers. So please come for that in live and in person, or you can watch it via live stream, 7 p.m. Sunday evening. After the service, around 8, we will have a nosh. And then we will do some learning with Rabbi Ricky, with Rabbi Ben, and with myself, and about 30 minutes each session. So you can stay for some or all, and we'll all be doing kind of different topics. And come join us. So we hope you'll be here. We are live streaming it, and there will be an email going out tomorrow that will have some texts that we will be using. So if you can't make it into the building but want to join us, you can check your email tomorrow, and you can get the link to be able to look at the texts that we'll be using again. But we hope you'll make it here and join with us, and again, give support to our 10th grade class confirmation. Also, Monday and Tuesday, we will be here 9:15 a.m. as usual for our festival morning service. Yizkor will be recited on Tuesday, sometime after the 10:30 hour or so. We have Hallel, and we have certainly our Torah reading of the Ten Commandments that we will do on both days. So Monday and Tuesday, 9:15 with Yizkor being recited on Tuesday. The question was asked, when do you light your candle or kindle your light for Yizkor? If you're doing that, if you have that tradition, generally it's when Yizkor is going to be recited. So most people will do it on Monday night, right, for the Tuesday observance. But if you prefer to do it as the holiday begins, that's fine too. So know that candle will, it's traditional to light a candle on the occasions that we anticipate doing the Yizkor service. Please remember as well that on both days, Monday and Tuesday, the office will be closed and staff is off. So if you are in need of something, you can catch us back on Wednesday. I think, Leah, like we talked about earlier, there's nothing special going on, right? Where is she? There she is. Nothing? Really? Okay. Well, we will be calling Leah to the Torah as a bat mitzvah next week. We have 2 B'nai Mitzvah coming up in a row. We have Leah, and then we have Mitchell Pullen, and we're very excited to be joining. Marcella's going to be doing confirmation, so it's a whole weekend, this weekend and next weekend. Love it. But please join as we celebrate with Leah and her family as she becomes a bat mitzvah, and there will be a lunch after, actually, so you're welcome if you're here to join. So don't forget about that, and it will be a wonderful Shabbat to be here, so please join us. Final announcement, we do have Torah Talk after, so we'll do our little study in the back courtyard area. I believe it should be set up for us, so those of you who are staying to do a little half hour of Torah study, you'll find the usual setup in the back, and you're welcome to join us. And finally, thank you to everybody who participated this morning. We had Sherry and Phil manning the back doors. She's like doing a cheerleading thing back here. Cool. Thank you so much, both of you. John, thanks for getting us started with Psuke de Zimra. That was awesome. And you do know now you're on the rotation. You're going to be called a lot, I have a feeling, this summer. We'll keep you busy. And for Torah reading as well, Melissa, Olivia, thank you for reading Torah as well. Wonderful. And Kevin for Haftarah. Appreciate that as well. And Rabbi Richards for a beautiful Devar Torah, very meaningful. And for my partner up here on the Bima, appreciate all the help and working together on our service. So with that, thank you all for being here. And we are going to end with a little bit of Adon Olam, followed by our traditional Kiddush for Shabbat. So if there are any kids that want to come up, you are welcome to come up after or now. Either way, we've got some of our crew up here, so if there's any of the kids in the back that want to come, they're welcome to come on up. Page 211, as we conclude with Adon Olam. 1, 2, 3. Can we do it? 1, 2, 3. Adon Olam, Asher Malach. V'terem kol yitzir nivra, le'et nasa b'chefzo kol, azai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam, v'acharei kiflot hakol, levado yimloch nora Adon Olam,
V'hu haya, v'hu hoveh, v'hu yiyeh b'tifara Adon Olam. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yetzer Nivra, Le'et Nasa B'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'hu Echad V'yein Sheni, Le'am Shilo Le'achbira Adon Olam, B'li Reshit, B'li Tachlit, V'lo ha'oz v'ham Yisra Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yetzer Nivra, Le'et Nasa B'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'hu Eli V'chai Goali, L'tzor Chevli B'yeit Tzara Adon Olam, V'hu nisi umanosli, menat kosi b'yom ekra Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yetzer Nivra, V'yeit Nasa B'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam, V'yato Avkid Ruchi, V'yeti shan v'ya'ira Adon Olam, V'im ruchi geviyati, Adonai li v'lo ira Adon Olam, Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yetzer Nivra, Le'et Nasa B'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Adon Olam. Shabbat Shalom. We rise, page 77, if you'll turn back for our brief kiddush. If you guys want to come over and get a cup, please.
Okay. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat le'dorotam le'ritolam. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat le'dorotam le'ritolam. Ein hiyovim b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat le'dorotam le'ritolam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz, v'shameru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat le'dorotam le'ritolam. U'bayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinachash, Shabbat vayinachash, Shabbat vayinachash. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat le'dorotam le'ritolam. Al ken berach Adonai et yom haShabbat vaykadshehu, sabri chaverai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shakah. Drink it, please. Stop playing around. You drink it. Yes.
Can I have a candy?
No, you have candy. I gave you candy already. No, I don't have anymore. One more and that's it. And give me yellow. There's another yellow one.
Yellow.
That's your favorite one?
Good boy. Yeah. Yeah, I like only orange.
Strawberry. Orange and red? Okay, well. Orange, red, and yellow? Okay. Hey, John.
People getting sweetness the plus
Yeah.
next. Well, these don't taste sweet. They just. Well, they taste a little sweet, but they don't have a flavor. The old ones be better.
Let's see. I don't know. That might be when we go away. I don't remember. Not next Sunday is the 23rd. The following Sunday is the 30th. We'll be out. You can go. Not a good idea, guys.
Did you only get one more?
No, he didn't get one more. That's the one that he took. Hi, John. Yes, sir.
Everybody has different senses.